Hamzamo family. Welcome to the 54 Corresponding Show on the Blackwood Financial Media for the 21st century. On the sixth day of the month of April, the year is 2022. Welcome to yet another interesting broadcast where we get to understand Africa better by delving into issues that have to do with the history of Africa. We talk about social economic issues, we talk about political affairs, we talk about science and technology, we talk about environmental matters and everything else in between, with the goal of really getting to enlighten our perspective about the continent of Africa, and also sort of remove. I'll deal with some of the stereotypes that have been dealt. About Africa, you'll hear people saying this and that about the continent of Africa. But once we are here on the 54 Corresponding Show, we get to delve into issues. And I hope to do that with objectivity, not just being going on with a hearsay. We also purpose to be here and also share facts about the beautiful continent of Africa. And starting off our show for today, we shall be talking about some of the proverbs every other time that we are on the show. I find myself wanting to share with us some wonderful words of wisdom coming from different communities or coming from different African communities. And today I shall be taking you all the way to Cape Verde, which is an African country. When you're talking about the 54 countries on the continent, Cape Verde really gets to get its spotlight on the show. But with today's 54 Corresponding Show, I want to take us all the way into Cape Verde and share with us some interesting proverbs from this beautiful country. One of the proverbs reads, "Whoever tells the truth, he is chased out of 9 villages. Whoever tells the truth is chased out of 9 villages." In some cases, you will find people wanting or tending towards lies, and anytime the truth is told, some people will find themselves uncomfortable with that truth. Even as some people have said that the truth hurts, but it sets you free, But right now, on this particular proverb, it reads, "Whoever tells the truth is chased out of 9 villages." You would rather just stick with the truth because the truth has only one version. When it comes to telling lies, you will have to remember how you told the lie, and how what was entailed in the lie. But when it comes to the truth, it doesn't have any variation. So I would still stick with this truth, and I'll be chased out of these 9 villages. Then I go with the lies, and then these lies will they will change, and they will not even set you free. But the second proverb from these people of Cape Verde, it reads, "Rats don't dance in the cat's doorway. Rats don't dance in the cat's doorway." We all know that rats and cats have never been friends. Even on our folk tales, you will hear barely any folk tale. These stories that I'll tell the children, bedtime stories and things like that. You will not hear many stories where we have had cats and rats being friends. So these are Cape Verdean proverb. It reads, "Rats don't dance in the cat's doorway. Rats don't dance in the cat's doorway." And at the third one, which is also this would also be resonate, even not just with the people of Cape Verde, but even with many other people. It reads, when the bag tears, the shoulders get to rest. When the bag tears, the shoulders get to rest, which is really what happening. If you're moving around, especially and you're carrying baggage or luggage, just baggage on your back, and your bag happens to tear, then what happens is that you would have to take a break. I would assume this is what would happen, but in some cases that might not apply. You remember when there was a slave trade, even if your bag tore, if there wasn't time for you to really rest, what used to happen is that you would be whipped and you'd have to carry on with that. But nonetheless, I will share with us a little bit of Cape Verde, so you can see for yourself a little bit of how life is in Cape Verde, and how life is inside this beautiful place, and also a little bit of the history of the Cape Verdean people. I always like to say that Cape Verde, you will find a whole lot of people on Cape Verde who really do not identify with the African identity. In Cape Verde, they simply want to associate themselves more with the colonizer. But let me share briefly on the history of the people of Cape Verde, and I will also show you briefly what you would find in Cape Verde. Cape Verde really is not it does not feature prominently. Even when you're talking about African news, it does not really feature prominently. But anyhow, let me share with us briefly on Cape Verde. Maybe perhaps for the curious, you might decide also that one time you want to take a trip and go see Cape Verde.
History, culture, and worldview, and welcome back to my series of Closer Look. Today, we'll be taking a closer look at Cape Verdeans. To support 5 miles off the coast of West Africa, the islands are divided into two main groups, referred to by their position with the winds. The official language of Cape Verde is Portuguese, but Creole, a mixture of Portuguese and African dialects, is a national vernacular. Most Cape Verdeans are Catholics, as it's the most widely practiced religion on all the islands. The largest Cape Verdean diasporic communities have gathered mainly in the northeastern United States, as well as in Portugal, Brazil, Senegal, and Holland. Little is known about the original inhabitants of Cape Verde. Scholars have no generally agreed upon date or identity of the first inhabitants of the islands. Some even suggest that the islands were completely uninhabited, but we do not know for sure. Even though the Portuguese settled the island in 1462, creating the foundation of the social and governmental infrastructure, the islands had already been explored by various African ethnic groups from the Guinea coast.
We are talking about Cape Verde off the West African coast. It's an island, a country off the coast of West Africa.
Though visited by West African peoples, they never seemed interested in colonizing it. Therefore, Diego Gomez has largely given that credit. The Portuguese used the islands as a refueling station for slave ships, and by 1466, with the establishment of plantations, the need for cheap labor was fulfilled largely by enslaved Africans from Guinea Bissau. However, the majority of the enslaved Africans came through Cape Verde in transit to the Americas. The islands were first divided between several Portuguese feudal lords who established plantations and supervised the slave labor. The social division of Cape Verdean society, based on the Portuguese feudal model, was clear from the beginning. White landowners occupied the top of the social pyramid, mulattoes and a few liberated Africans were in between, and enslaved African laborers were at the very bottom. The island of Santiago was used as a slave post, and slave labor was generally used in agricultural cultivation and production of sugarcane, vineyards, maize, guinea rice, and cotton, as well as in the salt mines. Over time, a large Creole population of mixed African and European descended people began to emerge, eventually becoming about 70% of the overall population. The remainder of the population consisted of Africans and about 2% Europeans. Cape Verdeans have maintained a recognizable and distinct culture on the islands and throughout the diaspora, mainly through the cultural markers of music, dance, food, and folklore, which have very clear African and Portuguese roots. The influence of African culture remains most visible on Santiago. There are four main musical genres: morna, coladerias, funana, and butuco. Morna and coladerias have very strong Portuguese influence, while funana and butuco, accompanied by rhymes of drums and a fast tempo, have distinct African origins. Although Morna has very vague origins, it's characterized by melancholy love songs, expressing sentiments of heartache, loneliness, and the hardships inflicted by the natural conditions of the island. The internationalization or globalization of Cape Verdean music, most specifically the Morna, has resulted largely from the fame of Cesaria Evora, a very celebrated Cape Verdean singer. In addition to music, Cape Verdeans have also produced folklore and literature, which has been central to the preservation of oral and folkloric traditions. Literature and poetry were
But it's also important noting that for the people of Cape Verde, they really identify themselves more with the Portuguese than they identify with the rest of the African, and that is a problem. You know, we do not have many countries on the continent that were colonized by the Portuguese, but I would tell you for Angola, Cape Verde, we also do have what is the other colony? Mozambique was also a Portuguese colony. And what was the other one? I think there was one more Portuguese colony on the continent, but you will find them being deeply inclined to connecting or to associating themselves with the colonizer than they would with the rest of the African, which is really a shame. But this is a Cape Verde for you. off the coast of West Africa. You will find it as an island country there.
Were used to construct the identity of Cape Verdeans. The first recorded written art emerged around 1866. Many of the early Cape Verdean intellectuals and poets found inspiration in Portuguese nationalism. Poet Eugenio Tavares printed the first piece of creative writing on the island in 1916 in two short volumes of classical love poetry. Written in the traditional Morna style, the work was overtly critical of Portuguese occupation of the island. One of the latest trends in literature is Cape Verdean nationalism and pride in Cape Verde's African ancestry. Toward the end of the 19th century, following the official eradication of slavery and the devastation of severe droughts, large numbers of Cape Verdeans left the islands to work in New England's cranberry and whaling industries. In 1951, in an attempt to quell the rising nationalism, Portugal changed Cape Verde's status from a colony to an overseas province. In 1956, a nationalist movement, the African Party for the Independence of Guinea Bissau and Cape Verde, formed the basis of the independence movement in both countries. Led by revolutionary political theorist Amilcar Cabral, the movement struggled to overthrow Portuguese colonialism. A priority of the independence mobilization period was to intervene in colonialism's repressive and deliberate erasure of African culture and restore the historic bond between the two colonies of Cape Verde and Guinea Bissau. Cabral stressed the importance of maintaining and reclaiming the native culture, particularly its element of resistance to foreign domination. He firmly believed in the inalienable right of every people to have their own history. Cape Verde and Guinea Bissau are linked through a common culture, language, and history, and have very strong historical ties. Amilcar is perhaps the most celebrated historical figure in Cape Verdean history and was certainly one of the most distinguished Cape Verdean anti colonial leaders. Well, I'm all out, guys. If you like these videos and want to help in
That is a little bit on the people of Cape Verde, and a little bit on their history as well. And I was just saying a little bit earlier on that you will find many Cape Verde people really sort of wanting to associate themselves more with the Portuguese than they would like to associate themselves with the rest of the Africa, Guinea-Bissau, or people on the mainland or on the continent, because that is an island country. We do have many other island countries. For example, we do have Sao Tome and Principe, which is also another island country. We do have Mauritius. We also do have Comoros. We also do have the Chagos Island, which we have spoken about sometimes, which was taken by the British and are given to the US in exchange for worship, among other different island countries that you will find on the Madagascar as well. I almost have forgot Madagascar. Madagascar as well. General Mosquito, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. You were saying afternoon, good afternoon to you too. I believe it should be 12:33 or rather 3 minutes past past 12 p.m. in the UK. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. It's actually 33 minutes past 2 p.m. right here in Nairobi, and we are continuing with this particular broadcast of the of the 54 corresponding show, where we talk about African matters. Going back to Cape Verde, personally, I do not know music from Cape Verde. I was just saying that Cape Verde is really in the shadow. If you ask me like to name two artists from Cape Verde, I really do not know. If you to ask me to name the current president of Cape Verde, really I have no idea, simply because Cape Verde really does not feature mostly on the news from around the continent of Africa. And like I said, it's sort of somewhat secluded. You will even hear more news coming from places like Madagascar and Mauritius and the Comoros than you will hear of Cape Verde. Another reason as to why they are in the shadows, it's because they have not, in terms of sports, sport is also used as an important tool for selling African countries. In terms of a sport, I cannot tell you about the national team, the soccer team. On the continent, soccer is very huge. So I cannot tell you about the national soccer team from Cape Verde. In other countries such as the South Africa, they do have Bafana Bafana. In Nigeria, they do have the Super Eagles. In Ghana, they have the Black Stars. In Kenya, we have the Harambee Stars. In other different countries, Uganda, we have the Uganda Cranes. So for Cape Verde, it would be particularly difficult for me to answer what sports they are well represented in. They are not much represented in athletics, neither are they represented in things like soccer. But in terms of their culture, you will find them. Their culture tends towards the Europeans, the Portuguese, because of our former Portuguese colony. Like you said, we also did have Angola being a Portuguese colony, Guinea-Bissau being a Portuguese colony. We do have Mozambique being a Portuguese colony, and all these are different countries. But anyhow, let me share a little bit briefly on Cape Verde so you can see what is inside Cape Verde, and then we shall move on to the matters of the day on today's broadcast. This is the 54 Corresponding Show on the Blackout Fan Network in a warm afternoon right here in Nairobi at 26 degrees Celsius, and it's 35 minutes past 2 p.m. In Nairobi. We hope that you also enjoy the company, learning a little bit more about Cape Verde.
Cape Verde is an island country spanning 10 volcanic islands in the central Atlantic Ocean. The Cape Verde was uninhabited until the 15th century when Portuguese explorers discovered and colonized the island, establishing the first European settlement in the tropics. Santa Maria, which is Portuguese for Saint Mary, is a city in the southern part of the island municipality of Sal Cape Verde. I took a trip down to this beautiful island with three of my friends, Wizzy Official, Mohammed, and Temple, and here's what went down. Hey guys, what's up? What's good? How you guys doing today? Currently on our way to Cape Verde. We're about into the thing right now. I have Wizzy with me. I have Mo with me. I go with the whole gang. And there's also Temple here. Look very depressed. Really depressed. I'm depressed now. This party, this is the thing right now. And walking.
There's a bunch of Nigerians in Cape Verde. I always keep on saying that wherever you will go to Cape Verde, the northern part or the southern part, you will find Nigerians. Go to Mauritius, you will find Nigerians. Go to Comoros, go to any other African country, and even outside, wherever you go, you will find Nigerians. And these are them also trying to discover what's up and what's good in Cape Verde. These are a little bit of their tour.
I don't know what my city is though, but check it out.
Cabin crew, disarm doors and report.
You guys just go to Sal and we're getting a cab now. The cab costs 13 euros to take us from here to town. And we paid, I think, 31 euros at the passport office for our visas. So we're about to explore Cape Verde. Come along. Santa Maria is located on the south coast, about 16 kilometers south of the Amilcar Cabral International Airport, and 20 kilometers south of the island capital, Espagos. Landing at the airport, you will need to get a tourist visa, which costs 32 euros, which is around 13,000 naira for visa on arrival. We then took a vehicle from Espagos, which is the island capital, to Sal, which is where we plan on staying for the night. Their currency here is majorly euro or the native currency called escudos. We paid 13 euros from the airport to our apartment, which was located in the heart of Santa Maria. We were able to get a cheap apartment to stay at after visiting a lot of options that were either too pricey or didn't look like what we had in mind. We finally found one called Dodara, which was a set of double bed apartments, and we were able to negotiate a great price of 35 euros per night. Hey, so guys, we're about to check this apartment out now and see if it fits what we actually have in mind. Let me give you a tour of our apartment. It was very minimalist and had hot water running in the shower. no Wi-Fi, but 24 hours electricity. We also had a balcony, which gave a great view of the outdoors. Obviously, up there. Yeah, so guys, we just bought the SIM. You know, when you get to a new country, first thing you need to do is get a SIM card. We got a SIM, so I got a SIM card for 150. The conversion here is times 100 for the value of it. That 150 is 1.5 euros. And also data, we got 7 gig. 7 gig is 1,500, which is 15 euros. So I was paying now. That's 1, 2, 3. I was trying to do it. That is not my WhatsApp number. Guys, we're currently walking on the streets right now. I'm with the gang. The gang. So I leave my restaurant now because we are really, really hungry, not eating anything since. So I think there should be one not so far from us. We're headed there now. All eyes on the way I thought when I walk into the room. Wind blows underneath the soles of my brand new pair of shoes. Got the attention. I'm on a mission. No. Tiny ass bottle of Coke. Pretty expensive. Smart, what do you think about this price of this Coke? It costs, Abby. Sit down. It's damn cold. This is a normal level 100 naira. 100 naira. So guys, we're going at this restaurant right here, and we ordered some chicken and chips. So that's like the only thing to understand here. We're currently waiting for our food to be served. Their food is first impression. Their food is so expensive. And everything costs.
So what I gather from these video from Cape Verde is that Cape Verde things are a bit pricey, and this also happens to be the case even for another French Portuguese colony, former Portuguese colony, which was Angola. You know, if you to go to Angola, the capital, it's known as Luanda. In Angola, you will not be able to afford much because things are overpriced. It's very expensive to stay in Luanda. It has been labeled, I think, as Africa's most expensive capital. You know, even more expensive than Johannesburg, than Cairo, than you know, Buja, than Dar es Salaam. If you go to Angola, Luanda, it's crazy. I also understand it's the same also for Cape Verde. Right here in Sal. And I was saying in this particular place, you'll also find a whole lot of Portuguese still laying claim, you know, even if the colonizers left, you know, they still have that attachment to the continent, and they want still to run their affairs, you know, and be in this place, which is, it seems like it has beautiful beaches, but this is a little bit of the video here. Their currency, I understand, is known as escudos, and from the rates, I hear these guy giving here. I would think that things are a little bit pricey in Cape Verde, which is also close to Guinea-Bissau, but it's an island. Guinea-Bissau is on the continent. This is also on the continent, but it's an island of the continent in the western part, in the West African part of the continent, where we do have Cape Verde. I think on our previous episodes of the 54 Corresponding Show, we really have never had the opportunity of really going and delving into Cape Verde, which is also perhaps something worth doing.
Cost 1.5, which is 15. That's 15 euros, more or less. Which is around, if you convert that to naira, that's like 6,000 for 4 people. Wasn't bad. So I headed back to the hotel now to go and prepare. We're heading to the beach. Finally, we come out and we're going to the Santa Maria beach. And this part we are working on now is a lot of.
The funny thing is that everything is in Portuguese names, and if you do not understand our understanding of Portuguese, you might not be able to get around easy. So that is a problem I believe we have in Cape Verde. Cape Verde actually reminds me of Eritrea, because in Eritrea it seems like it's a small Italy, and you will find people speaking Italian in Africa, in Eritrea, which is crazy. But now this is Cape Verde. Which is also has a lot of Portuguese colony. You will find a whole lot of Portuguese. You might actually think that you are in Portugal, but you are in Cape Verde, because people tend towards, you know, more. They are more inclined to the Portuguese culture than they are inclined to the African culture. which is a shame because I know the Portuguese used assimilation. I believe also that the French also did assimilating people such that they impose their own culture, their language, everything else that is theirs on you, and sort of minimize or diminish the value of your own culture and the value of your own languages and the value of everything else that you have. That is the same thing that has been done to Cape Verde, and you will see this place. Even if you talk to a Cape Verdean, maybe perhaps in the States, or you maybe come across in a Cape Verdean in the UK, they might not really be vibing that African vibe. They will be vibing that Portuguese vibe. But this is a taking over of the mind.
Shops. And this is a lot of like beach slippers and beach stuff like that. Alright, let's get slippers. So. I'm having a problem here because what big size? You understand English? I don't understand English here, they speak Portuguese, so you have to be expressive in how you communicate. So when you're trying to say something, you can show them on your phone, or you can. I'm probably going to download Google Translate very soon.
Welcome over here to my town, Kivut, Sup. So, we're all from Africa, so
I see this is a beautiful place to go surfing. If you're looking for a place to go surfing, I think Cape Verde will be that spot. But then again, like I said, they are more Portuguese in terms of their culture than really they are even African, which is really a shame right there. So it's a place which is an island country. Like I said, we do have many other island countries on the continent. We do have Mauritius, we have Comoros, we have Madagascar, we have Sao Tome and Principe. We do have those are some of the island countries we do have off the continent of Africa, and I would say for most of them, you would also find a whole lot of influence from the former colonial powers in that particular country, if I might call them. So, for Madagascar. Uh, for Madagascar, those are a French colony, and therefore, if you ought to also go to Madagascar and you are not a French speaker, you might also have a problem with that. Sister Janet, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. We hope that you are doing well. I bet it's too early for you in the morning. I know for General Mosquito, it's a little bit later in the day. So, but for Sister Janet, I bet it's still very early. But thank you so much for being with us on today's broadcast. This is a Fit for Correspondence show on the Blackwood Finance Talk. I was just talking briefly on Cape Verde, and I was saying, if you're looking for a place and you have a knowledge of a Portuguese language and you're looking for a place maybe to go check out on the continent of Africa, the population of a Cape Verde is really not so huge. From what I could see, even on the streets and even the way their buildings are set up, I don't think. Let me just check up the population of a Cape Verde just to be right. The population of a Cape Verde. Let me just confirm this. Cape Verde population. This is a place where you'll not find so many people there, but the island is relatively big. Let me see population. The population there is they are just about in 2020. The population was at 555,988. This was according to the population. So they even have they have a population which is smaller than the Comoros Island. I was talking about the Comoros Island a little bit earlier on, but they have a smaller population because the Comoros has 869. So if you're looking for places to go to, you also do have the Maldives. The Maldives also is also another island where people also like to go for tourism. For the Maldives, it's mostly for honeymoons and things like that. For another place that people like to go to is Zanzibar, which is also another island. Zanzibar is part of Tanzania. Before they joined, we did have Tanganyika and Zanzibar being independent, but then they joined to become one, which is now Tanzania, from the two words Tanzania and Zanzibar. they have Tanzania. It was Tanganyika and Zanzibar to have in one name, which is Tanzania. That is from a tourism perspective. Yes, in case you really would like to go see for yourself, and some of the places I have not heard about terrorism. Terrorism or instability, insecurity in Cape Verde. Neither have I heard about terrorism in Zanzibar, nor terrorism in the Comoros, or insecurity where people are blowing up things in Maldives. So for the island nations on the continent, even for Madagascar, I don't think I have had any situation with the insecurity and things going crazy. Apart from Mozambique, Mozambique also has one of the biggest coastlines. I think it has the biggest coastline after Somalia. Somalia, Somalia or Mozambique, either of the two have the biggest coastline. So if you're looking for a place to go on a vacation, I would say Mozambique and Somalia are not particularly good because of the insecurity, but these other places are wonderful. Zanzibar in Tanzania, Maldives, the Comoros, Mauritius, and maybe perhaps Cape Verde. I have not heard about things are going crazy in those particular places. So if you're looking for spots to go to, the only thing would be a problem. The only thing that would be a problem is the language, because like I say, for Cape Verde it's Portuguese. For the Comoros, I think it's French. For Madagascar, it's French as well. And for Sao Tome and Principe, I think it is also French, but I will also confirm that as well. For Sao Tome and Principe, let me see, main language. The main language for Sao Tome and Principe is also Portuguese. So this is also another Portuguese, a former Portuguese colony, and therefore it would also be a bit difficult for anyone coming from an English-speaking country and are going for a vacation into Sao Tome and Principe, or are going into a vacation into these other different places. But anyhow, family, I wanted to get into the matter of the day and talk about what is happening with an initiative that has been referred to as the One Belt Initiative. And this is an initiative by the Chinese, really expanding their influence, not just in Africa, but their influence globally by putting together one of the most ambitious projects. I would say this is one of the most ambitious projects in recent history of having infrastructure, road and rail infrastructure to connect China with the rest of the world. By investing in a road infrastructure, investing in rail infrastructure, and working with other countries in the world, in Europe and also in Africa and the rest of Asia, to bring this interconnectivity. And this is to the benefit of the Chinese. So we do have recently also the same initiative being introduced in Africa, and this was launched in 2014. It's referred to as the One Belt, One Road, which was presented internationally as a Belt and Road Initiative, or the BRI Initiative, which is China's, I would say, one of China's biggest ambitions. And this is strategic and comprehensive in terms of bringing interconnectivity and connecting China with the rest of the world. Of course, this is being done because China has a high demand, for resources. I'm talking about raw materials, and raw materials where better to get these raw materials than from the continent of Africa. So I will share with us this video briefly, just to share the introduction of what is happening now with this silk and one belt initiative by the Chinese. Let me share this. So that you can see what China is doing to expand its sphere of influence when it comes to geopolitically. And this is also the same also being expanded into Africa, and you will see for yourself. This is not just hard and soft power. This goes beyond sort of taking over control. You remember sometimes back we were talking about the Chinese, the Chinese death trap on the continent of Africa, and we have talked about even other places where the Chinese have put countries in deep debt. We have talked about Sri Lanka, where Sri Lanka was given a huge amount of loan by the Chinese, and they were not able to pay this particular debt back. So what happened is that their port was taken over by the Chinese, and of course the port is the biggest way in which our goods, our commodities come into the country and also leave the country. So it means if you're not totally in charge of your port, you have somewhat lost control of your own country and the trade system in your own country. The same thing was a fear in Kenya, where Kenya was given much loan by the Chinese. And when this loan was given, at some point there was a default on the payment of these particular loans. And there was a worry by the Kenyans that the port, the port of Mombasa, which is one of the biggest ports, which serves Uganda, it serves Ethiopia, it serves other East African countries. If it went into the hands of the Chinese, it means that they would be in control of the logistics, or the trade, the flow of a trade into Kenya or into the East African region. And this is what has continued to happen. But let me share briefly on these Silk and Silk One Belt initiative, so that you can see for yourself how China is also planning for the takeover of not just Africa, but for the rest of the world, by making sure that it has open routes, to take back resources from the rest of the world into their own.
This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
It has been 8 years since Chinese President Xi Jinping introduced the concept of the Belt and Road Initiative to the world. Described as a colossal infrastructure investment, the BRI, also known as the New Silk Road, is designed to usher a new era of trade and growth for economies in Asia, Europe, Africa, and beyond. At least 140 countries globally are signatories to the BRI, as at 2021. 46 of these countries are in Africa, where various BRI projects have begun to take shape. Now, Africa and China are set to mark 21 years of multilateral partnership at the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit in Senegal later this year, and discussions on the Belt and Road are expected to feature prominently. So how far has the Belt and Road been developed in Africa? What has been its impact on African countries so far? And will it deliver on its promise for the people of the continent? I'm Beatrice Marshall. Welcome to Talk Africa. Before we bring in our panel of experts to give us a wider scope of the Belt and Road Initiative, let's first take a look at activity on the ground from one of the new Silk Road's flagship projects. The 752-kilometer long Ethiopia-Djibouti Railway already in full operation. Girum Chala has that report.
Thousands of containers transported from the port of Djibouti to this dry port located just a few kilometers outside of Addis Ababa. Ethiopia's requirements from heavy machinery to everyday goods shipped here.
And talking about Djibouti and Ethiopia, Djibouti was once part of Ethiopia, or what we call Ethiopia. Eritrea was also part of Ethiopia, but these regions decided to break away and secede from Ethiopia to become autonomous, self-rule in our region and our countries to that effect. So what did happen is that right now, Ethiopia is actually a landlocked country. Ethiopia has been considered as one of the largest or the fastest growing economies to some extent. Before the war started in their country, they were considered to be one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. Of course, then there was this now internal fighting with the Tigray, which messed up things. But if Ethiopia was serious about its growth prospects and also becoming the leader in terms of development in this part of the continent, Ethiopia should never have let Djibouti to become an independent country or a country on its own, because that way they lost their access to the port. And the port, that is how goods are moved easily. So that would have, of course, made sure that they were able to also get more in terms of commodities coming in and commodities going out of Ethiopia. Right now, Ethiopia has to rely on Djibouti. It has to rely on Djibouti. Of course, they have to pay for the use of the port in Djibouti, which for me does not make a whole lot of sense. They will still have made sure that they would have kept that part of Djibouti to make sure that they are getting the trades, their goods outside. Ethiopia is also the second most populated country on the continent. And so if it was also, Egypt was also part of that, I would think that maybe perhaps the unison or the unity would have made it a powerhouse, like a powerhouse for real. But anyhow, that's besides. Let me just talk about what is happening now with the Belt and Road Initiative. But the Chinese put in a lot of money into this particular project, almost close to the budget that is done by the World Bank. The World Bank has a budget of about 472 when it comes to the money it gives out. For China puts in a budget of about 460, and which is very close to what the World Bank also does. It might even get to a point where China would be doing more than the World Bank. But anyhow, what did happen is that from about 21 years ago, from 2000, the Chinese sphere of influence expanded into different African countries, such that now China came and presented itself as the liberator, or as the savior for African countries and African governments from the chains of the West, through the World Bank and the IMF. So they came and presented themselves as an alternative, as an alternative financier for African governments and African countries, giving them lesser restrictive terms when it comes to accessing loans. And this is exactly what did happen. So many African countries now turned their hand to China for these loans that were given, and their terms were rather considered to be less restrictive or less, they were more flexible. Let me just say the terms were more flexible. So what did happen? We did have Ethiopia, we do have Kenya, we do have the DRC Congo, we do have Zambia, we do have Angola, we do have South Africa. These are some of the countries that are in most Chinese debt, simply because from 2000, they were presented with better, quote unquote, better deals for them, and therefore they got into the pocket of the China. And so if China now comes up from 2014 and says, or from 2013, around 2013, and says, this is what we want you guys to do, we shall be giving you these loans to develop this road, or to develop these infrastructure, the railway infrastructure, to connect this area to that area, like you did here with this one. There's an railway infrastructure connecting Addis Ababa to Djibouti. And then we do have one connecting maybe from the port of Mombasa to Nairobi, from Nairobi to going up all the way close to Ethiopia. This is how they would want it, so that at some point they can also be able to dictate the use of this infrastructure. If you're given money by the Chinese to construct a port, like I was saying earlier with Sri Lanka, if you're given money to construct a port and then you default on the payment or the terms of these loan that you're given, it means that they still have the access to come up and take over the control of that port again for so many number of years, to make sure that they recoup their money or they recoup their investment in that particular project. So that is what will be happening with many other African countries, I believe, in the foreseeable future, countries that are not able to pay back the money that they were given by the Chinese, first and foremost because these deals were not as good as they were purported to be. And the second thing is that these deals were signed by some African leaders looking after their own personal interest for this construction of these big infrastructure projects on the continent of Africa, using mainly Chinese labor.
Thanks to the Ethiopia-Djibouti modern railway, a process that lasted days has been reduced to hours, saved on cost, and enhanced safety and efficiency.
What you do see here, this is in Ethiopia, but these are the Chinese running it, of course, with the contracts that they do. They are mandated to run these big infrastructure projects, including roads and railways, for a given period of time. Before then, they hand them back over to the locals, or for example, the Ethiopians and the Djiboutians.
Ethiopia's history as a landlocked nation has changed once and for all.
Since the independence of Eritrea from Ethiopia, we just happen to be landlocked country. And this railway especially connects the Djibouti port, which is almost equal in distance to the Assab port. So for us, changing this landlockedness into land-linkedness by railway. Professionally, in railway industry terms, we call it land-linkedness. So after having this railway, for us in the industry, we feel that Ethiopia is no more a landlocked country.
Commissioned about 6 years back with funding and expertise from China, the 700 kilometers rail track transports passengers and goods every day from the heart of Ethiopia to Djibouti and vice versa.
Other than containers, we also transport very critical commodities like fertilizer, wheat, and also steel.
China's Import and Export Bank injected billions of US dollars into this mega project. Ethiopians have held China for the fact that they, alongside Djiboutians, have reaped big from this key Belt and Road Initiative flagship project. Beyond this railway, China has proven its commitment to Ethiopia on many other fronts. Aggressive investment.
This is China's CGTN TV, so do not take every word for it, whatever they are saying, because of course they're there to push Chinese propaganda and do a whole lot of PR with their media on the continent. But the thing is, what they are not saying is that the terms and the conditions that were stipulated in Ethiopia, and not just Ethiopia, but other African countries getting these loans, they hold these particular countries hostage, with these data traps. We have to talk about Zambia, which has the most Chinese debt. Right now, if you go into Zambia, you will think that you are in China. You will think that you're somewhere that is a Chinese colony, because you'll find so many Chinese there. But so what did happen in this particular project, like I did say, is that we did have 46 countries signing up on the continent of Africa, signing up for these the Belt and Road Initiative. And what did happen is that the China Exports and Importer Bank, which is the Exim Bank of China, injected a whole lot of money. And in some of these particular cases, the money that was injected, I would say there was not adequate feasibility study, not even feasibility, but there was not a study of the risk. Yeah, the risk involved in terms of how you generate back the money and pay back China. So what would happen eventually is that in some countries, you would hear now China demanding for the takeover of things like the ports or the railways, the terminals, things like that, the infrastructure, because they are the ones that put in the money and also the expertise or the skills to construct these particular projects. But this is a little bit of what is happening. Let me share briefly on the same in regards to these the Belt and Road Initiative, because what I do see is that China reaping the most from this and being able to access Africa more easily because of these investment that they put. And of course, I was just questioning about the matter of the terms and conditions that most African leaders signed up to, opening up their countries, the Chinese, with the Chinese money, and also the Chinese expertise in constructing these railway lines and also these roads. It would help internally. I'm not saying that it is fully destructive. It would help internally in terms of moving products from point A to point B, but also at what cost does it come? And when it comes to paying back, what will happen with that? Africa will be held hostage once again.
Senior Research Fellow at the Institute of West Asia and Africa Studies at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, Dr. Siko Nkala, joins us from Johannesburg. He's a postdoctoral research fellow at the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in this conversation. Ambassador Mwencha, you have been at the forefront and at the helm of this Belt and Roads progress in Africa. Let me start off with you, if I may, because 8 years ago, Chinese President Xi Jinping introduced the concept of the Belt and Road Initiative, an effort to improve connectivity, improve regional trade and investment through a vast network of infrastructural projects. It is 2021. Start off there for us. What is the status of the Belt?
That was last year.
And Road Initiative, particularly here in Africa, in terms of the number of countries on board the BRI and physical projects launched on the ground?
Thank you very much, Beatrice, for having me, and I also want to thank my fellow panelists. Yes, the Belt and Road Initiative has taken root in Africa in many ways. First of all, globally, the Belt and Road Initiative now has 140 countries. Of those,
46 are in Africa.
Those 140, 46 are from Africa. And in the context of Africa, a number of programs have been implemented, starting with in the area of trade. If you look at trade between China and Africa, trade which was.
But the question also is, when it comes to balance of our trade, you'll find that it's in favorable on the side of the African, such that for the African, the China gets to use the African market even as a dumping site for some of these products that whomever this panelist is talking about. You will hear them saying that, for example, for cheap phones and other substandard goods that you will find coming from China, they find their market in Africa, and therefore it only makes sense for China to make sure that there is such a project like this, which is the Belt and Road Initiative, which also helps them, bring in their commodities from China into Africa, really at a lower cost. And of course, Africans will have to pay for that particular cost eventually, and it will all be benefit on their side. But these will not be said, of course, on this panel. These are CGTN and Chinese TV.
A country of about 10 billion the year 2000, enhanced by FOCAC, but of course also enlarged under the Belt and Road Initiative. Now this has gone over 200 billion. In the area of investment, a number of investments have taken place in the energy sector, in the mining sector, and also in the infrastructure. In infrastructure, a number of ports have been developed and along some corridors like Mombasa, Nairobi, Djibouti, and you have also West Africa, which have also benefited from the Belt and Road Initiative. And the other part, which I think is not spoken about a lot, is in the area of culture, people-to-people cooperation.
Right.
Africa has now over 50,000 students in China.
That is also going on with the benefits, but not really talking about what is happening on the ground, because like I was saying, these also gives them access to Africa, and this access is on their own terms, because if you come up and you're the one making this road, and you're the one offering this road or the seaports, the money for the construction of the seaports, it means that you have almost unlimited access, and therefore this also beats all. This puts in a competition, because what did happen with China? It was trying to outseat or try to outdo the West and Europe in terms of their control on the continent and in terms of their access to resources on the continent. What did happen with this One Belt initiative is that this sort of was a contest, not really a contest, but it was a way of outseating or outdoing Europe and the West to be able to access resources much more easier on the continent using their own terms. They're using their own terms. And this is $1 trillion kind of a plan, which was the goal was really to dominate. This is a goal of dominating world trade. If you're talking about dominance, of course, dominance would have to do with your access of resources and access of these interlinkage. And let me share also briefly on this, so you can also get to understand a little bit much more better what is being done with the continent of Africa. And for many African leaders, they took the money, and this money was supposed to go into the project, but most of the money was also squandered, so that you're getting also a substandard project.
Want to pass your certification exams first time?
A long time ago, a number of routes were etched on this planet, spanning 8,000 kilometers on land and sea. They became a vibrant pathway for trade, for sharing goods, people, ideas, and cultures. It was called the Silk Road. In 2013, one man decided to revive it. He called it the Belt and Road Initiative. He saw it as his road to riches and legacy. He roved in several countries. Together, they account for 40% of the global GDP, 65% of the world's population, and 75% of the known energy reserves. They launched multiple projects: a highway in Pakistan, a new seaport in Sri Lanka, forest city in Malaysia, hydropower plant in Uganda.
For the seaport in Sri Lanka, what you do see here, which is a port city of Colombo, what happened is that the Chinese are pumped in money for the construction of this particular port, And then the Sri Lankan government was overridden with debt, and therefore they came back and took it. So they have now the control of or the access to this particular port, determining what goes out, what comes in. The same thing will also happen for these other projects that you hear of. For example, this Karuma hydropower project in Uganda. Also, there was some money going into the development of the port in Mombasa. At some point, there was a worry about the port of Mombasa also being taken over by the Chinese. And the Kenyan government said it's honoring its debt commitment and it's paying. And this is dominance. This is also dominance in terms of the whole of Asia, some parts of Europe, as well as Africa. This is a plan by the Chinese from 2000. This has been the plan. And of course, it was launched in 2014. And from 2014 right now, you will find all these projects are going on. And right now, I would say China is the Exim Bank is not doing as good as it was doing, because right now the money is not being paid back. For some of these projects, they have not looked into assess properly the risks. They just went out throwing a whole lot of money, and I made sure that these countries are not also able to pay back. There's a situation going on right now with the Exim Bank. But let me play a little bit of this.
Motorway in Serbia, and these are just a few of the examples. As we speak, roads, railway lines, shipping routes, ports, oil refineries, industrial parks, and power plants are being built in at least 72 countries. It's a massive initiative, and yet the Belt and Road is fast turning into Belt and Road blocks. Xi Jinping's superhighway to world power is riddled with potholes. Hello and welcome to Gravitas Plus. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. It's time we discuss the Belt and Road Initiative and why it's failing. The BRI is the brainchild of the Chinese president. In China, it is called Yi De Yi Lu. For the sake of comprehension, we'll stick to the BRI. It's the most ambitious, extensive, and expensive project in the world. The estimated cost is said to be between $1 and $8 trillion. For perspective, only 16 countries in the world have a GDP above that figure. So how did the BRI begin? Which countries are a part of it? Is it just a plan for economic integration, or is it a tool to secure strategic goals? And most importantly, is it sustainable? The questions are complex. We'll keep the answers simple. In October 2013, Xi Jinping was giving a speech in Kazakhstan. He mentioned the ancient Silk Road and floated the idea of unifying global markets. 1 month later, he went to Indonesia and spoke about a maritime Silk Road. This is how he floated the idea of Belt and Road. The belt refers to the land routes to this network of multiple economic pathways. The road refers to a maritime network, to these shipping lanes running from China through Southeast Asia, Africa, and all the way to Europe. The belt is made up of 6 corridors. They serve as routes to get things in and out of China. One of them runs from Jilin to St. Petersburg in Russia. The second from Shandong to Denmark. The third from Kazakhstan to Turkey. The fourth from Hainan to Malaysia. The fifth from Guangdong to Bangladesh. And the 6th corridor runs from Xinjiang straight through the buckle of this economic belt, Pakistan. The flagship project of BRI, this is the CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. It's where the economic belt meets the maritime road. It's a win-win deal for Beijing. This corridor means a strategic outlet to the Arabian Sea, a new alternative route for oil and gas through West Asia. For Islamabad, it means money and development. Pakistan, as you know, is not a popular choice for investments. China is exploiting this. It is building a vast network of highways, railways, and hydropower stations in Pakistan. The total cost of these projects is estimated to be $62 billion. That's nearly 1/4 of Pakistan's total GDP. But who is funding these projects? They're being financed by heavily subsidized loans. Who gives these loans? Chinese banks. Who gets these loans? The government of Pakistan. Last we checked, these loans were worth $5.8 billion. They accounted for 5.3% of Pakistan's total foreign debt, had an interest rate of 2%, and a repayment period of 20 to 25 years. What happens if Pakistan fails to pay these loans on time? It will have to lease out the projects or ports to China, meaning China will control the projects. And this is
what happens when you get this money and you're not able to get this particular money or you're not to pay back this particular money. It means that there is a time to pay back. And when it's time to pay back and you're not able to pay back, what you will do is that you will hand over the control over these projects back to the Chinese. And of course, that way, it will still be a win-win for them. They do not really lose out. It might appear as if they are losing out, but that is a whole call at the end of the day for them. The transportation projects is to benefit themselves and export and transport natural resources across Africa. They're not doing it to benefit Africans. Exactly. And also for the rest of the world, it's for dominance. The dominance in trade such that they are able to access Africa and also the rest of the world easily. Of course, giving them market for their own products and also getting back into China using this silk initiative, which is what they wanted initially also to get to achieve from this. Let me share a little bit more of this before we finalize.
This is where things get murky. You see, the BRI is not a gift. It is a debt trap, a means to lure developing nations into borrowing more than they can afford. Once they are buried under this debt, you enslave them by seizing strategic assets as collateral. It's already happening around the world. The Gwadar port in Pakistan has been leased to China for 40 years. The Obok military base in Djibouti has been leased for 10 years. Tajikistan had to cede more than 1,000 square kilometers of land for a petty loan. Laos had to let go of its entire national electric grid to a Chinese company. The Hambantota port in Sri Lanka has been leased to China for a period of 99 years. Same with the Malacca Gateway in Malaysia, in Chinese control for 99 years. That's the same amount of time, by the way, that the British leased Hong Kong for in 1898. Almost every BRI member nation is saddled with predatory Chinese loans. I have a report with me. It is by the Center for Global Development. It says 23 BRI member nations are at risk of significant debt distress, and out of them, 8 countries are at heavy risk. They can end up owing half of their foreign debt to China. Now, look very carefully at these countries. This map tells you how the BRI has been a hit where democracy is weak or has seen challenges. What's their excuse for sinking in Chinese debt? The promise of sparkling new infrastructure, but at what cost? These countries are caught in a vicious cycle of debt. They take loans to repay interest on previous loans. They're compromising on their sovereignty and making China richer. The biggest construction companies in the world are Chinese. They have been awarded $340 billion worth of contracts. The richest banks in the world are Chinese. The China Development Bank is involved in 400 projects in 37 countries worth $110 billion. The Industrial and Commercial Bank of China is involved in 212 projects worth $67 billion.
If it's not what the quest for global dominance is like, then I don't know what quest for global dominance would be interpreted as, if not this. But this is exactly what is happening. Sister Janet, you say in general, my brothers and our sister get to pay for all of it. Kids, right? The African mind is gone, and that is also what you find many African countries: Zambia, Ethiopia, Kenya, Angola, and so many others right now will be riddled in debt. And eventually what will happen is that they will have to give part of their control of these assets and other things to the Chinese, on different terms. And that is what is coming. There will be a war at the end of the day, an African war and a Chinese war. Kid has said it sometimes, and I do foresee also that coming maybe sometimes in future. We are winding up on today's broadcast. I just want to share a little bit and highlight the One Belt initiative. But we are winding up for today. Remember, you can also join us on other subsequent episodes of the 54 Correspondence Show. It's always a delight to have you tune in. Maybe perhaps sometimes you get to learn a thing or two about the continent of Africa. Today, we just had to highlight 2 countries, which is Cape Verde, and also really talk about Ethiopia briefly, and also what is happening with this Chinese conquest of Africa. Because that is exactly what it is, and the rest of the world. Anyhow, I want to wish you a happy and a productive remaining part of the day. Remember also to check us out on the Africa Today show, and also check out what Sister Nish, Kit and Zobi are also up to in Tanzania as well. Much peace and love. I hope that you continue enjoying the rest of your Wednesday. Till we catch up again on the other show, keep safe.